Morning. Is this on? Okay, good. Thanks for coming this morning. I know everybody's busily planning for the possible evacuation that we may hear about a little bit later, but Toby will talk a little bit more about emergency planning and what may be coming up in future days. Have a pretty full agenda today. Where is she? There we go. Okay. I'm going to talk about our office hours update, a little change that we're doing there. Also budget planning and information for everybody. That'll be coming up this fall as we're going into 2018. We've done a property owner traffic survey, had great results from that. We'll give you a little update on that. Scott Liggett, who is here with us today, town engineer and director of facilities, will be giving you some information about the beach fill project that is currently going on in Sea Pines. Amanda will give you a variety of updates on elections, events, some feedback that we're looking for the gate entry committee, and then a Hurricane Irma update. Russell will be up and talk about Plantation Drive. You've probably seen the signs going up and all that information going out there. And additional maintenance project updates. David will talk about the Forest Preserve salvage project, which is currently underway in the Forest Preserve, and then some upcoming events. And then Toby will talk about safety and security update from the summer, as well as future, and also talk a little bit about hurricane preparedness. So without further ado, I would like to remind everybody we are filming and we are recording. So when we do get to the Q&A, and we will break for Scott's Q&A so he can get out of here. He'll do a quick Q&A after his presentation, but please do at that time. Also, David and Amanda will be coming around with microphones so that we can record the question as well as any answer. Sorry, is that better? Yes. Okay, so go back through that again. Just wait for the microphones on questions, and Amanda and David will be circulating around with those microphones. Get the question on the mic so we can record that, as well as we'll get the answer on the mic as well. And we will have a quick update from Scott and a Q&A session from Scott Liggett, the town engineer, for those of you that did not hear that. So, moving on. Okay, I'm just going to do that there. We have changed the hours at the administration building. We're opening a half an hour earlier in the morning and closing a half an hour earlier. So it's 7:30 to 4:30. We had a lot of people coming in early in the morning. A lot of this was related to commercial vendors coming inside needing additional help, and they were sitting around for an hour to try to get some help. So we decided to open the hours of operation for the CSA building from 7:30 to 4:30. So a little change in that. Hopefully that's not going to inconvenience anybody who's looking for something later in the day. And of course, a lot of us are available by appointment as well. So, okay, budget planning information. I don't think we have a slide on this, do we, Amanda? This is just for informational purposes. I think Charlie Miner talked to this last community coffee a little bit about some of the challenges we're facing going forward with costs. And we have challenges going forward with costs. A big one is a result of something we did last year, which is this little book, which is our stormwater study that was completed late last year, and we are continuing to update that. But the information that's contained in that is basically that we are way behind in our maintenance of our infrastructure for stormwater, and we have to catch up. That's the planning cycle that we will be in, and we will be presenting that back to the board through MEMP, through all of our committees, operating committees, and advisory committees, and then coming back, hopefully in November, with a forecasted budget update. Where the money's going to come from, we don't know yet. So we have to figure that out. So we're coming along with those plans as well. I do have some good information on stormwater this year from our efforts through the study, and we're working with the town. We have about $650,000 available from the town that is already planned out for the town in the fiscal year budget for stormwater. So that's a big increase from what we've seen in prior years, and should go a long ways to help us with next year's plans. So with that, let's go to the traffic survey. The Sea Pines, we surveyed property owners to determine importance of traffic-related issues around the Greenwood Gate and Ocean Gate. We sent it via email. We got 2,800 responses, which is the largest response set from any survey we've ever done. I think we hit a nerve. So we got a lot of information back. It's great. We're pulling it all together. We got some, really, focused areas that we see are high priorities. We'll have more of that coming out. We will be posting the results of that when USCB, who's our survey provider, gets all the reporting done. We'll be posting that to the website, and we'll be working, passing that on to our gate configuration task force. And we will be meeting sometime next week. Don't recall the exact date, but sometime next week with our traffic engineers, the Gate Configuration Task Force. We've invited Charles Cousins from the town to attend, waiting on hearing back from him if he's going to be able to do that so that we can start the planning process for the gate configuration and what thoughts might be there. Once we get some recommendations, the idea here is we're going to bring those recommendations back out to you in a survey and see what you think about them before we move forward on those. So that's the concept that we've got developed for gate configuration. So with that, I will turn it over to Scott. Scott, come on up.
Thank you. Thank you, Brett. Good morning to you all. I'm happy to be back. Happy to be here to provide the update regarding our project. I do need a little bit of a technical assist here as you pull up the concept plans. And let me start here. In simple terms, what we are now trying to execute is the project that we tried to alert everybody that we intended to really in the days following the storm, through winter and through spring. In general terms, the limits of the project, roughly 2 miles along the south end of Hilton Head Island, roughly between Brown Pelican Street here on the south end and East Beach Lagoon here on the extreme southern end of Hilton Head. All of this shoreline, of course, is immediately adjacent to the Sea Pines Resort. This is the project that was vetted through the town's planning commission, budget funding provided by town council during the budget deliberations here this past spring. The project was bid in June. We actually had very favorable bids and were able to, at this point, save what we think may be several $1 million in our estimated project cost. It was put under contract here over the course of the summer with a company that's based in Charleston, South Carolina, that happened to have a dredge with availability working in Savannah. So all they had to do from a mobilization standpoint is demob, prep the dredge, and bring it across the Savannah River here to Hilton Head. And frankly, the other competitors really didn't stand a chance from a mobilization standpoint. We began the project insofar as the pumping of sand here literally 2 weeks ago today. As some of you may be aware, there was a run-up of several days of mobilization, but for the most part, for those of you that haven't really seen much traffic on the roadways, we did have a 100% water-based mobilization, equipment and pipeline all barged in here and offloaded there at the toe of the island. So that's the reason why the apparent lack of presence, maybe if you are not within the project limits, all of this came in by water, which is a good thing as far as we are concerned, and I think from the community standpoint as well. Thus far, we have placed a little bit more than 100,000 cubic yards of sand on a little bit more than a mile of shoreline. To refresh your memories, in total, we had plans to place about 350,000. So about a third of the total volume or so is in place. But keep in mind, the section that we are now working roughly in here and heading north is the fatter of the sections. The extreme southern end was relatively thin. As we move north, the beach gets a little bit wider. And in fact, to give you a point of reference, the berm that we are choosing to build to try to repair the damage and really recreate conditions that existed prior to Matthew ends up installing about a 200-foot wide berm. In some areas, you can equate that to the high water line being pushed out about 200 feet. So it will become noticeably wider. Those that are right now in and around our active project area can, I think, see evidence of the overall size of the project, and that's where we're working now, heading to the north. If I could ask for the second slide. This is a document that is, it remains valid. It's currently available on the town's website. If I can ask you to slide down. And what I want to draw your attention to are the rough timelines of work. The submerged pipeline was landed here in and around Greenwing Teal Street. The pipeline was extended, and the entire segment 1 that's shown here in yellow is complete. We're now working on the southern end of segment 2. The schedule expectation remains accurate that we expect to finish this work late September, early October. We've got more than a mile's worth left to go, but thus far progress has been good. Of course, the storm and its potential impacts remain to be seen. I can tell you from a scheduling standpoint, we are monitoring a variety of weather conditions. Interestingly enough, one of the features that may serve to benefit us insofar as a steering of the hurricane leads us to believe that we're going to have a nor'easter, or at least northeast winds, potentially showing up here Friday into Saturday. The stronger those northeast winds are, the better we are from a hurricane protection standpoint. However, the stronger they are and the sooner they arrive, the more likely it is we'll have to shut down before we may like to. Right now, we are working hard and have kind of established a soft goal of working to place sand in front of as far as Piping Plover Street, which would address the worst of the erosional damage from last fall. We're working hard. They have been able to, on some days, make progress as much as 500 feet per day. Right now, we're about 1,200 or so, 1,000 feet away from Piping Plover. So we're close, but we will work as long as conditions allow. Long term, though, we hope to be able to finish here literally in the coming weeks. And let me leave with this before we open up to questions. The town does have a subscription service just for this project itself that's available on the town's website, hiltonheadislandsc.gov. If you choose to sign up for the subscription service, you will get copies of any of the press releases and public announcements that the town issues. We can't necessarily rely on the local media to publish all of the press releases that we put out, and quite frankly, this project has been relatively benign. It's gone on. It's been a little bit weird in that regard because it has been so different than most of our projects. Thus far, I would advertise everything as mostly being good news. I appreciate the forbearance of those of you that are immediately adjacent to our project site. We're hoping to get this thing done in coming weeks. And thus far, all good. And we'll finish as soon as we can, and we'll see what the storm brings to us here in coming weeks. And I'm happy, if there are any questions, to answer them as I'm able.
Thank you so much, Scott. We will take questions from Scott at this time. We are having some technical difficulties with our 2 separate microphones from the back that we typically use for Q&A. We will still, of course, hold Q&A. Please speak up as loudly as you can because we are trying to pick that up on the videotape. But we'll open this to questions to Scott. Again, these are related to the Beach Renourishment Project here in Sea Pines, and we will take questions right now. So does anybody have any questions related to this project? Yes, sir.
Hi, thanks for your presentation. I had a question on what the town's view is on a more structural approach. Mother Nature will, over the years, take the sand away again, and then that should be repeated. Are there plans to do something more structural to actually keep the sand where it is?
There are not, and in fact, the structural solutions are literally frowned upon in that most of the structural solutions, whether we're talking about armoring the shoreline or groins, tend to always have winners and losers. And long ago, back to the 80s, when the state came forward with the State Beach Management Act, structures like that, in many cases, were simply prohibited. And the ones that we have been able to construct have always been complementary to a sand placement project. But the structural solutions, quite frankly, that were enacted here on the island prior to the town's incorporation did really more harm than good. The entirety, as an example, of North Forest Beach was armored. There's a revetment that's about 10,000 feet long that runs from Caligny all the way to Shipyard. And generally speaking, what they do, while they hold fast the line of development, they also tend to deflate and lower the shoreline in front of them. But we don't have as a global policy the notion that we would armor or put in structures. We have used them strategically, and I would suggest that philosophy will remain in place. Where we think they are appropriate in complement to our sand placement, we'll examine opportunities and potentially seek permits to do that. And that's been our model thus far.
Any other questions for Scott? Okay, thank you so much for your time,
Yep.
Scott. We certainly appreciate it.
And let me also, in leaving, thank David, Brett, and Toby. Their assistance in getting this thing up and running has been invaluable, and so appreciate that. I'm sure the support will continue, and thank you all for your forbearance.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you to the town of Hilton Head as well. Their project and their help with this process has been fabulous, and we certainly appreciate their efforts. Just give me one moment to get switched back over to the agenda for us. And my apologies for the technical difficulty we are currently experiencing with the microphones. What we will do when we come to the quick Q&A section of our agenda, we will repeat the question that's asked by the audience member, so that way it's picked up on the video for us. So, good morning. My name is Amanda Jones. I am the CSA Director of Communications. We have quite a large agenda, so I'm going to move through it as quickly as possible. Upcoming events, we do have several upcoming events happening in the Sea Pines community. Save the date on September 21st at 4 p.m. Please note that that is an afternoon meeting for that session. ASPO board meeting will happen here in this building. The CSA board meeting will occur on the 26th. That's at 3 o'clock. In October, we have our community coffee on the 4th. That will also be an afternoon meeting. Typically, obviously, it's at 9 a.m., but for the October session, we hold that from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. And then meet your board candidates. Another really great meeting coming up. Save the date for that on October 25th at 2 o'clock. All of those meetings listed there are to be held here at the Sea Pines Community Center. Save the date as well for some upcoming fun community events. We have our flu shot clinic going to be held on October 9th. That'll be held from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock here in this building. If you are on Medicare, you can get the flu shot for free. If you are not on Medicare, it is a $35 charge for the flu vaccination. Cash and check will be accepted. Patients will be seen by appointment times. Walk-ins are welcome, but you have preference. If you have a scheduled appointment, you can call this number here to make your appointment and get signed up for your flu shot. We are also hosting a community blood drive on the 24th of October from 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock. The blood mobile will be coming out to the community, and they'll be over here in the community center parking lot. Details on how to sign up for your space are coming soon. We also will be hosting a community shredding event, as well as having our wellness bus from Beaufort Memorial Hospital come out to visit us, and we're looking to have them sometime in mid to late October. Elections. So we are prepping for CSA and ASPO Board of Directors elections. I'd like to pass some information for you guys. The following spots are available beginning January 1st, 2018. 3 directors' positions are available on the CSA Class A Board of Directors, and then 3 ASPO positions are also available. Board interest forms were due by the 15th. The nominating committees of CSA and ASPO took those candidate interest forms and interviewed those candidates. Both CSA and ASPO nominating committees approved all the applicants who submitted an application. Per CSA and ASPO bylaws, the names of those candidates were posted on our website and as well sent out via email to our property owners on the 31st of August. These are your ASPO currently running for ASPO. These are the folks that ran through the nomination committee process. They are listed here. They are shown in alphabetical order. Per our bylaws, we must note how they ran. So you'll see a new candidate, incumbent, and they are listed here in alphabetical order. So this is your ASPO current folks who are running for the ASPO board. This is for your CSA board. Again, they're mentioned in alphabetical order. It is noted if they're a new candidate or if they are an incumbent. Nomination by petition.
Can you remind us how many people are on each of those boards?
Yes, sir. The question was how many people are on each of those boards. The ASPO board is a 9-member board. These are made up of Sea Pines residential property owners. There are 3 spots available for the ASPO board. For the CSA board, this is a 17-member board. 9 members are Class A residential property owners, 4 members are Sea Pines Resort representatives, and 4 members are commercial to comprise the 17. And there are 3 spots available for CSA as well, for Class A seats, which are residential property owners. Nomination by petition. Per the CSA bylaws as well as the ASPO bylaws, you may nominate yourself by petition if you'd like to do so. For CSA, you must have your your petition signed by 50 residential property owners in good standing. For ASPO, your petition must be signed by 50 valid ASPO members in good standing. We have copies available at the back of nomination by petition forms if you're interested in running that route. The candidate has to be willing and able to serve, and both CSA and ASPO bylaws require the petition to reach the nominating committee by October 1st. Please be reminded, October 1st is a Sunday. Our offices are closed on Sunday, so please be aware that they are sooner than the 1st would be appropriate, but October 1st is the deadline. A nomination by petition forms, like I mentioned, are available at the door, but they can also be found on our website at cpinesliving.com under our Board of Directors elections page, and then we also have copies available at the CSA office. Return copies are due by October 1st, and you can contact Sandra Archer, who is the CSA Executive Administrative Assistant, at 671-7810 if you have questions. So when will you be receiving your ballot? The ASPO and CSA ballots will be mailed out on November 1st, 2017, and voting will close on December 1st, 2017. You must return your ballot straight to the auditor. We do have a drop-off, or we will have a drop-off box when the ballot process is open, but we don't touch, we just send them straight to the ballot auditor. If you would like us to mail them for you, we can certainly do that. You would just take them to CSA, but they do get sent to the auditor. We're asking that you participate in this year's election and make your vote count. The nominating committees of CSA and ASPO are seeking community input for candidate questions in preparation for the elections. The nominating committee of CSA and ASPO will review the questions submitted by the community and select questions to ask of all candidates. Each candidate will receive a list of questions that they will be able to answer, and their answers will be provided in a Word document, which will be posted on the Sea Pines Living website. Their biographies, the photos of the candidate, and their answers as to why they wish to serve will also be posted on our website on or around October 11th. You may ask why October 11th. We have to wait until we receive all of our nomination by petition individuals who are running, and because it's not due until the 1st, we have to give them the appropriate time to be able to answer the same questions and have the same allotted time that folks who ran through the nominating committee process did. So we make sure it's fair in terms of how long they have to respond to biography request, photo request, as well as their request for questions that the community will pose. Questions are requested by the 20th of November, and questions should be sent to me at info@csaseapines.com. This information will also be sent out on our mass email communication system, posted to our Facebook page, and posted to our website as well. I'm going to move into the gate entry policy information. We recently posted the gate entry policy proposed changes that are recommended by the gate entry committee. We would like property owner feedback related to those recommended changes. Currently, the Sea Pines gate entry policy is posted on our website, as well as the recommended changes. Feedback is requested to that policy, and there is an online feedback form that's posted on our website. We're asking for feedback to be completed by the 13th of September, and feedback and recommendations collected from property owners will be reviewed by the Sea Pines Gate Entry Committee. So this is a really important document. It governs a lot of what we do in Sea Pines, especially from a gate perspective. So feedback's really important. If you have a chance to take the time to put the effort into getting us feedback, we certainly utilize it, and we'll get it to the Gate Entry Committee. It is due by the 13th. This information has been sent out by our website, Facebook page, and email, but we will continue to request feedback up until the 13th for that project. So this is what I think has been on the top of minds of most everybody in the room today. Toby will be addressing some additional Hurricane Irma information when he does his portion of the presentation, but I just wanted to bring this to your attention. This was this was the earliest update I could post in our presentation today before I had to come over. So this was as of 5 a.m. this morning. It does show Hurricane Irma tracking up towards Florida. This is from the South Carolina Emergency Management Division. It is a trusted source. Increasing confidence shows that South Carolina will see some impacts, but the details remain uncertain in terms of the track of which it will follow. So please be advised, the maximum sustained winds of this hurricane currently are 185 miles per hour. It is a Category 5. It certainly does look like it is making its way up towards our area, but we don't have any, real answers right now as to which path it will go. We continue to monitor weather resources quite closely. So what does that mean? Make sure that you have a hurricane plan in place. This is vital. We've just gone through Hurricane Matthew. It's still a really open sore for all of us. Make sure you have your hurricane plan in place. Prep your hurricane kit now. You can visit our website for updates. The town of Hilton Head does a great job of pushing out updates as well. We push those updates from the town, but of course they are one of our primary sources for getting that communication from that governmental agency. They have a great emergency preparedness guide on their website. In addition, I recommend that you sign up for her emergency alert services. There's a couple different really great ones available. The town of Hilton Head has one that they can email you, they can text message you, so it's a really great service. You can sign up to get different types of alerts, and a hurricane is one of those types of alerts if you'd like to. Beaufort County Sheriff's Department also has a service. We've talked about it before. It's called Nixle. Nixle's a really great service. If you'd like to, the easiest way to get signed up is to actually text that number, which is 888-777, and you just text your zip code to that number, and they'll sign you up for those alerts. Just a really great way to sort of stay as updated as you possibly can related to any type of emergency situation, regardless if it's a hurricane or not. And for weather updates, again, we encourage you guys to visit Hilton Head Island SC.gov, which is the town of Hilton Head's website, and the National Hurricane Center is also a pretty trusted source that we use quite regularly to get updates. So again, our website is a secondary communicator. We push the information from the town of Hilton Head, from the state, local government officials, but we really want to make sure that you guys are preparing as much as you can in preparation for any emergency situation, including Irma. Not to be the bearer of bad news, but there's Irma's little brother is right behind her, which is Hurricane Jose. So we just need to be as prepared as we possibly can. So how will CSA communicate with you in the event of a hurricane? By a show of hands, last year for Hurricane Matthew, how many of you guys were receiving our email communications? That's fabulous. If you were not, please sign up for our email communication services. That's the one of the best routes that I use as your director of communications to keep you guys updated during an emergency situation. So regardless if you evacuate to, even California, or even if you go 5 hours away, I can still get you guys and can still communicate with you. So our website obviously is a really great tool. Our Facebook page, like I just mentioned, our mass email communication services. CSA also has a hurricane emergency hotline, which is listed here. That number currently does not have any warnings posted because we don't have any current warnings, but once we start getting into warning potentials, we will start posting updates to that number. Updated information is critical. If you've had any change in any information, your cell phone number, your email address, please get us that information. This is my email, info@csacpines.com. I cannot stress enough that we need your contact information, and we will use it to communicate with you regarding hurricane updates, CSA updates, but it's vital that we make sure that we can get to you guys. Again, please monitor local radio, weather, television stations, and reports, and follow the directions of emergency officials. I will now pass it to Russell Fredericks, our CSA Director of Maintenance, and then we will hear from David Henderson, Toby, take our short meeting break, and then take Q&A. Russell?
Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing? Just in regards to Hurricane Irma preparations, and to expand on some Amanda's comments, we are making preparations within the property to lower our lagoons, checking critical storm drains. Also had a call with the Town of Hilton Head Engineering Department yesterday, and just working through some coordination there, again, on our drainage system to make sure that we're well prepared. We're currently operating the Lawton Canal pump station to make sure everything is in order. So in case we have to really start pumping large volumes of water, that we are ready to do so. One thing I would note, with all the recent heavy rainfall, the ground is very saturated, which does not put us in the best position currently. So we're not going into the, when Matthew hit last year, I believe that the summer here was a lot drier. So just one thing to keep in mind as we're preparing for the upcoming storm. In regards to our upcoming or road paving project that we've actually started mobilization on yesterday, starting to put out the electronic message boards and working with our contractor in terms of setting up the project. We're going to be evaluating this over the next day or so as to see how far we're going to actually take this work, considering the hurricane is potentially coming this way. And we'll be making the necessary plans to make any adjustments there. But we are planning today to start some demolition work and some road milling. So the schedule is posted on our website, seapinesliving.com. As you can see the schedule here that we've worked through with our contractor. Plantation Drive, as we all know, is a very busy road. So again, just bear with us as there'll be some traffic delays in the work zone as our contractor will be making the best efforts to minimize those delays to all property owners. So again, on the scheduling, we've worked through that the hours of operation. Monday through Friday, and bypassing any holiday work. In regards to the next steps, once we move from Plantation Drive, we'll be going into North and South Live Oak and Magnolia Crescent to resurface those roadways in a similar fashion that will be resurfacing Plantation Drive. So again, very large project. Plantation Drive will be taking us the full month of September. And hopefully, we are not delayed by the storm. So, next slide. Beach Lagoon. We are exploring this project further. We're in conversation with a couple different contractors in terms of exploring some various methodology into removing the sediment that's in the bottom of the lagoons. So more to come on this. We should have more details in the coming weeks ahead, but we are planning on going to Beach Lagoon later this fall or winter. Again, this is all depending on what happens with the coming storm. So if we do have the hurricane hit, obviously this is probably a project that will have to be rescheduled. So again, we will communicate any updates or other information that we'll be receiving over the coming weeks back to you. So. More recently, that we've purchased some vital capital equipment for ongoing maintenance operations, and some of this is in response to the storm from last year from Matthew. We did purchase a new stump grinder and a machine that we call the Gyro Track, which is essentially a brush cutting machine that we're using for open space mowing. There's approximately about 60 acres thereabouts throughout the property that now have abundant sunlight and no trees. Thus, there's a lot of vegetative growth that we're combating on a weekly basis. So, this sort of equipment's essential. We could also use this in maintaining fuel breaks in other areas around the property. But again, a vital piece of equipment for us here in the maintenance department. Other equipment that we've recently purchased is some new dump trucks for debris pickup throughout the community. The dump trucks that we did have, unfortunately, were up there in age and need to be replaced. And we also added a power washer to our fleet. We're using that especially at the front and front gate and the ocean gate. And also we'll be using that on a variety of signage throughout the community, keeping the community looking its best. So. Greenwood and South Sea Pines Drive. Toby addressed this briefly in our last community coffee and referenced some other updates and other work that we'll be doing out there. I just want to quickly point out we have installed additional signage out at Greenwood and South Sea Pines, directional signage for pedestrians. Right now the pedestrian traffic is being funneled towards Beach Walk 24. And I just also the news. Many of you, as you're going down the roadway, will notice the new speed limit signs that are in place, lowering the speed limit from 30 miles an hour to 25. So those signs are out there. So I know Toby has installed some additional radar equipment that's monitoring the speeds out there, and Toby could probably speak to that further. Again, just want to point out some of the additional efforts and enhancements that we have made in the area. Next slide. And in regards to upcoming plans for the intersection, we are working closely with our engineers and the town of Hilton Head to work through engineering solutions for the intersection. We are currently exploring a new landscape island that will help improve the traffic safety in the area, as well as pedestrian safety. Kind of reconfiguring the intersection, changing the geometry is an essential part of the next step. So again, we're evaluating these aspects of the engineer's recommendations, along with installing a potential new leisure trail and other roadway crossings in the area. At Wagon Road, particularly, we're looking at that location to install a new crosswalk. Again, that'll be a stamped crossing, and also stamping the crossing that's existing at Beach Walk 24. So again, these are all safety improvements that we're currently considering, and we'll be moving forward in our committees to analyzing more of the information. So again, just want to make everyone aware of other aspects of enhancements we're considering. So, and just hopefully we could do this. But we are looking at extending a couple of the beach walks in the property, Beach Walk 11 and Beach Walk 12. There's quite a significant amount of sand that needs to be crossed to get out to the ocean. So in each area, there's quite a couple hundred feet or more of a boardwalk extension that would be necessary. Currently, there is a moratorium in place on building any boardwalks in what is a critical area, which these kind of fall on the very edge of. So we are probably going to have to wait a little bit, but we are, again, working with the town on those next steps. And we will also be executing repairs on Boardwalk 42A. So again, this is a lot of exciting work that we have planned for this fall, and hopefully we could do it if the storm doesn't come through. So, good. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I'm David Henderson, your Director of Special Projects and Operations, and I'm going to cover two subjects. One is the salvage work that we're currently doing in the Forest Preserve that was necessitated by Hurricane Matthew, and then quickly cover some upcoming events we have in the Forest Preserve. This is a post-storm aerial photo of the Sea Pines Forest Preserve, and from this distance and this angle, it looks great. Yeah, everything just looks really good. Just get you oriented, a couple places. This is Carolina Place. This is Greenwood Drive. This is Lake Forest. CSA buildings right here. It's Heritage Farm. This is the prep school complex over here. And this is Cordillo Parkway. And you can see our lakes that kind of run through the center of the Forest Preserve. The next slide that I'm going to show you is just a zooming in on this photo of one area in particular, which is this area right in here. And so what this is really showing you is a bunch of downed trees. And one of the things I wanted to point out here is that you'll notice that all of these trees are essentially non-pines. So they are maples and sweet gums and a variety of hardwood species that generally occur in the lower or the wetter areas of the Forest Preserve, which is about 2/3 of our acreage in the Forest Preserve. And I wanted to point this out for a couple of reasons. One is to let you know that even with this work that we're doing and will continue to do in the Forest Preserve, we will not be able to access a lot of these areas because they're wetland areas and it's just not appropriate, nor is it even accessible to go in and try to do any type of salvage work. So unfortunately, in these type areas, we will clear boardwalks, we will clear paths, but the majority of this storm debris that is there will remain because we just cannot access it. As location being so important, I also wanted to point out, although it is very difficult for you to see, here's one of our boardwalks, which, interesting enough, we had just completely replaced earlier last year. And so I'm going to zoom in, and so we have this blowdown area, which is roughly this area here. And I'm going to zoom in on the next photo just to show you what the amount of damage and the scale of all these trees, which you, again, can't see, but they are over our boardwalk. So that's what that looks like, just to give you a little sense of scale and magnitude as to what we are dealing with and working on in the Forest Preserve. Sorry about that. So here's our boardwalk. These are the trees, of course, that went across it. You can see we've already begun the process here. And then, of course, the photo on the right is current conditions. So this was an example where we were able to go in, but you'll notice that there's still a lot of debris if you were to walk on this boardwalk, this large open area now, and that debris will remain until it just naturally decomposes, as it will in all of our other wetland areas. So I announced at 1 month ago today at the community coffee, it came together really quickly, that our salvage operation had begun in the Forest Preserve. It had been months and months and months in the making, and as things often happen, it came together really quickly, thus the kind of the last minute notice last month. So we've been actively working about a month in the Forest Preserve, and as Russell mentioned earlier, it's been a very wet summer, and we waited so many months for ground conditions to improve, and I've blamed the contractor for bringing the rain with him, but it seems like some weeks it rains every other day. And of course, we're there to make things better. We're not there to make things worse. And so we have been delayed at times and have had to stop work because the ground conditions, the amount of water that was there was just too much. But when we're dealing with this work, there's really two components. And these slides illustrate those two scenarios. The slide on the left, this is just obvious, classic hurricane. Anybody can see it, kind of blow down damage. To get you oriented, you can't quite see it, but this is near off of Lawton Canal Road, near the pedestrian bridge and the vehicular bridge that goes across. There's an electrical substation, which is right there. So if you're familiar with the area, you'll know exactly where it is I'm talking about. And just on a personal note, after the storm, and we came in and went to the administration building first, and then I went to Six Oaks second, and then I went into the Forest Preserve. And just by coincidence, when I went into the Forest Preserve, this photo, I took this photo. This was the first thing that I saw when I went into the Forest Preserve. I turned around and I left. It took a few days. It took one of our maintenance guys saying, "Hey, David, it didn't all look like that. Trust me, okay? You can come back in." But putting these photos together and going through this process, again, on a personal note, I'm sure you feel the same way or have some of these experiences. It's just been emotionally traumatic to go back through these photos, particularly with the forecast and the storm that is out there now. And it's weird in that one way it seems like it was an eternity ago, and then in other ways it just seems like it was yesterday. But the Forest Preserve is in my opinion, one of our greatest community assets. Our slogan is "It's our natural treasure," and we're trying to treat it like that. And if anything long-term good comes out of this, it is that Hurricane Matthew presented an opportunity and almost an acceptance of and a recognition of the work that we're doing out there. And it is significant. If any of you have seen any timber harvesting operations, there's no getting around it. They're ugly. They're ugly. There's no, and we are doing additional cleanup work and things that normally would not be done in a normal timbering operation, because we realize that there are aesthetic concerns and considerations, and we have trails and we have roads, and we want people to be able to access and to be able to enjoy this. And so it is a process that we're going to go through. But we are doing every single thing that we can. I have a wildlife biology background. We're working with our state registered forester. Literally, we were out there. I'm out there multiple times a day, 7 days a week when work is ongoing, to make sure that what is being done is what we want to be done, so that we can set the stage for the next generation of property owners. And I like to think that when we're doing this work, and it is transformative work, it's generational work. This is work that when we're out there, we're thinking about your grandchildren is what we're trying to do. So you have your classic blowdown situation here. This is clearly a salvage harvest in which they are able to go in. They are able to merchandise or to sell the wood. The Forest Preserve is getting the proceeds from that. Whatever that amount is, we're estimating somewhere around $30,000 to $40,000. That's just a percentage of the additional money that we will need to spend to do additional cleanup efforts. So while we are realizing some revenue, it's just an offset over additional work that's going to be forthcoming. Wanted to spend a little bit more time on this photo here, and this is what we refer to as the forest health component. So we're in there, we're doing the work, and we just can't turn a blind eye to conditions that, to be frank, existed probably for decades and were not necessarily related to the hurricane. But now is the time to address these issues. The best example I can give is that, all of you have most likely have trees on your private lot, okay, around your home. And if you did nothing to any of the trees that were on your lot for the last 60 years, so if a tree died, you left it. If it got damaged, you left it. If it got covered up with vines, you left it. If it got diseased, you left it. And if you could only imagine, just using your own yard as an example, that over a period of 60 years, if you did that, what the trees on your property would look like. And that's a situation that we've had in the Forest Preserve, where literally nothing has been done over many, many decades. So a few things I'll point out on the slide to the right, and this is related more to forest health work that we're doing. Where storm damage ends and forest health work begins, it's a blurred edge. It's a blurred edge, and there's a little both at times. But we're looking, when we're going into these areas, to look at suppressed and diseased and malformed trees. And so in this slide here, and again, I know it's hard to see, but what I'm trying to show is that there are multiple of leaning trees, some that are leaning more than others. Those probably were storm related. Excuse me, this pine here is dead. Again, you can't see it, but it's dead. There's a really nice live oak that you can barely see in this area in here, but you kind of can't see the forest for the trees, if you will. Also invasive exotics, primarily Chinese tallow tree or popcorn tree, if you're familiar with it. Very, very invasive. So it's exotic, which means it's not native. It's invasive because it can do damage, because it is so aggressive and can spread and dominate and lower the natural native diversity of species that you have in there. One general principle in habitat management is that the more diverse it is, the more variety of wildlife, particularly birds, which I think is the greatest asset the Forest Preserve has, is the bird sanctuary. And so, these are before photos. There will be after photos that will be shared when it's appropriate to do so with you going forward. Also, again, we're encouraging preferred species, and the whole point of that is to encourage some ground in mid-story diversity that we didn't have before, because the canopy was so closed that nothing had a chance to come back and take its place. It is interesting to note that pine trees are not the natural climax species here for trees. In other words, if there weren't any humans here, you would not expect to have pine trees like we have pine trees here now. They are here because of the influence of humans. And like all of us, trees have a life expectancy. And pine trees, it can be anywhere between 70 and 100 years. Well, guess how old a lot of these pine trees, not only in the Forest Preserve, but in the entire community, guess how old these trees are getting to be? They're getting to be about that age. And so you had a situation prior to the storm where you have a closed canopy, meaning that your sunlight is not getting to the ground. There's no regeneration that's coming back as would naturally occur, okay? And we have an even age stand. So at some point in the future, you would expect a significant number of trees to end their life and to die with really nothing there to take their place. And so it's really obvious in the Forest Preserve, but in many ways it is applicable to the whole community. And one last point, and I'll go to the next slide, is that it's almost like layers of an onion. When we would get in and we mark every individual tree, working with our forester, that is going to be removed. It's like layers of an onion. You remove the first layer, and then you can see what you couldn't see, and then you'll go on and you do a second round. If any of you have noticed, like Palmetto Bay Road, this is a really good example. So it really got hit hard by the storm, and all those trees that were obvious, left photo, that needed to come down are down, and they're kind of in the stage to the right now. If you go down Palmetto Bay right now and look like the Cambridge office building, if you know where that's at, and look particularly in that area, there were trees that were fine and did not need to be removed during round one. But if you go through there right now, there's a whole slew of trees that need to be removed during round two. And I think that we will see that community-wide as trees that were able to survive the storm but were significantly damaged that are just dying off at a slower rate of time. Other areas, as you come onto the island over the big bridge, you get onto Jenkins Island, there's a lot of tree fall there. Next time you go through there safely, take the time to kind of look up at some of the canopies, you'll be surprised at the number of dead trees that are currently there that are going to ultimately need to be removed before they fall and cause some problems. I'd mentioned disease earlier with some of this forest health improvement work. Primarily, we're talking about pine beetles. We have several species of pine beetles in the southeast. The Ips beetle is probably most common. If there's any good news about Ips beetles is that they're not hyper-aggressive like southern pine beetles are. But what they will do is they are attracted to dead and dying trees. And so they get predisposed, the beetles will get in it. It's not actually the beetle itself that kills the tree. It's a fungus. I believe it's a fungus that is on the legs of the beetle that gets introduced into the cambium, which is the living portion of the tree, and it kills the tree. And then it'll kill the tree, and then it can spread under the right conditions. And we have found multiple beetle areas already in the forest preserve, the largest of which was a half acre in size. So when we get into a beetle area, every single affected tree within that radius plus a buffer is removed to keep it from spreading. This map here is it's actually LiDAR data, but it gives you elevation imagery. And I just wanted to point it out as some of the tools that we are using to help identify where we can go in. Really what this is showing is that the highest areas are in white, the lowest areas are in black, and then you have a gradient in between. And you can see some of the areas where it is appropriate for us to do this work. These are the relatively upland areas, relatively dominated by pines. And we've identified these areas. And of course, the conditions on the ground dictate whether we work in an area or not. But a couple things I wanted to point out is some of the higher areas where we are working. So again, this is Carolina Place. This is Lake Forest. This water treatment plant, prep complex, Cordillo Parkway. Of course, you can see your lakes here. So as you look, you'll see some areas where the colors are relatively light. And these are areas where we are planning on working. So here's an area here. There's an area off of Lot 1, right off of Greenwood Drive. I think we'll save that one for last. Area here near where all that blowdown damage was that I showed the photo of earlier. Behind Lake Joe, this area in here. And you can't see it, but this is the same data that Dr. Matt Sanger and his team had accessed before to identify shell rings. And again, I can barely see it, but you probably can't. You can actually see the shell ring right there in the LiDAR data. It's so sensitive. So this is an example of some of the tools and technology we're using to best identify these areas. One more area I'll point out to you where we actually have completed the work is over here, kind of the backside of the lake. So with that said, we'll go on to a few events coming up with the Forest Preserve. I think it is safe to say the Forest Preserve needs the community more now than ever. And you do have some opportunities coming forward this fall to support us if you're able to do so. We have our community yard sale. It will be on Saturday, October 21st. It's at the trolley lot on Greenwood Drive. We are now accepting applications. You can get that online or you can stop by the CSA building. Our yard sale, I believe this is it's either our 7th or our 8th, but 7th, thank you. Last year's was canceled because of Hurricane Matthew. So we're really hoping that we get to have another yard sale this year. Our annual solicitation letter, we send it out every year. It's going to go out, and this is our single largest source of revenue for the Forest Preserve. Those will be mailed out to you late September, early October. If you have, for whatever reason, did not get one of those letters and are interested in making a contribution, the foundation is a 501c3. Please let us know and we'll get that to you, but you should expect to see those late September, early October. And then we have our signature event, the bonfire, which is Friday, November 10th. Prices are the same as the last couple of years, and tickets will be available starting October 3rd. And then the last thing I'll mention on the Forest Preserve is our 2018 calendar is ready. It's going to be delivered here in the next day or two. So those are available for retail purchase at CSA. And if you give $75 or more during the annual solicitation letter that you'll receive, we'll mail you a copy of the calendar. So with all that said, I appreciate your time, and we will turn it over to Toby. Thank you.
Good morning. Just a couple of quick updates to talk about some security issues first. All in all, I would say looking at our statistics, we had a really I wouldn't say a peaceful, but we had a really calm summer. We didn't have any major incidents occur until now. I didn't think I would be talking about another storm, but here we are. But overall, the security through the summer was pretty light. All of our statistics, for the most part, are all down. Our traffic accidents were down. Our calls for service were down. So it was, for the most part, a really, really good summer. Our bicycle accidents, we did have more than what we had in previous years. We had some that were pretty serious. But all in all, things look very good. We're not inundated with the burglaries that we had before, the car break-ins. A lot of that has really almost completely dropped off. So that's a good report there. One thing I would ask that you help us with, if you are having construction work done, any type of yard repair, materials being delivered, furniture being delivered, depending on where you live at, and you're organizing this with whoever your delivery company may be, and they're driving a tractor trailer, please give this some thought before you order rooms to go and you live on a street that you can barely drive down, and we have a tractor trailer show up that we don't know that's coming. So please contact the security department to let us know that you have something. Ask the delivery company, what kind of vehicle are you coming in? Because not every road in Sea Pines can you drive a tractor trailer down. And what happens, we get the call, traffic is a complete standstill, and we have no idea what's going on. So please do us the courtesy, give us a call, get with your delivery people to find out what are you coming in, and let us help you schedule this so for whatever it is that may be that you're doing, because we're having some really big issues with that. Gate runners, and we term it a gate runner. That's someone that doesn't stop at the gate and get waved through. Daytime is not a problem. The staff can see the decals. In the evening times, please slow down to the point that you can see the guard and get waved through. We do put a stop sign up in the evening that says stop, and it's not that we're trying to delay you by no spec. We're just trying to see the decal, and with the headlights on, it is hard for staff to do that. We've had, last month, 118 gate runners that we consider a gate runner. So the last thing we want to do is to run a patrol car after a property owner and we just didn't see the decal. That's all it is. So please slow down until we can wave you through. If you can put them on, put your parking lights on, that would greatly help. We're trying to position the lights, but it seems if we get the light a little too angled, it hits the windshield, and then you call us saying, I can't see driving through the gate because the light's too bright. So it's a balancing act at the gates. Storm. I really thought my predecessor would be talking about this. I didn't think I'd be talking about another storm, but here we are. You got to make a plan, and more importantly, you need to have a plan B. I did a site visit to Aiken to find hotels for the CSA staff, and I found out yesterday that they've now sold our rooms. So now I'm scrambling to find a place for us to go. So you got to make a plan. It is still too early to tell. I've talked with the town officials this morning. We still don't know. But here's what we do know. In the event that we have an evacuation, and I said this prior to Matthew, and what I don't want to do in the event we have an evacuation or we have to leave and we have to make a reentry coming back, the last thing that staff should have to be doing is bringing water and oxygen to someone who chose not to leave, because that's what we did. So if the governor gives a warning to evacuate, that's exactly what you need to do, is to evacuate. Because Matthew was a challenge. When we got there, Greenwood Drive was closed in. And to come to find out, we thought 15 property owners stayed back in Matthew. It was really like 50 to 60 people that stayed back that we didn't even know was even here until we got the telephone calls. My husband is on oxygen and he doesn't have any more. So now I'm trying to coordinate oxygen to get it delivered. So please don't put us in that position to have to come to your house when we're trying to come back to clear the roadway so that you can come back to your home. So if an order of evacuation is given, leave, because guess what? We are. CSA security is not staying back. Not in a category 1, not in a 2 or 3, we're leaving. So we're going to stay back until we make sure that we get everybody out. If you need assistance, please don't hesitate to call, but we are going to leave. The Beaufort County Sheriff's Office and the Town Fire and Rescue, they also leave. So if you decide to stay, you're on your own. Everybody understand that. In the height of the storm, you dial 911, guess what? No one is coming. So you need to be aware of that. I said that before, and come Matthews, that's what we were dealing with. So please, and more important, have your plan, figure out where you're going to go. We stayed away quite a bit during Matthew. 5+ days you're away from your homes. Please get your information from a credible source, not your friend on Facebook. That's not where you go to find hurricane information. If we have to evacuate and we have to return, make sure that you get your information from a credible source about re-entry into the county. We had a lot of conversations with the sheriff and the town officials about re-entry. It was a problem. We're hoping that we're going to be better than we were last year. But you need to make a plan. Don't just decide, okay, everything's fine, the storm's passing, you come back and you're stuck out on 278 and you're not getting in. Because when we came in, there was probably 4,000 people on the side of the road of 278 from I-95. So get your information from a credible source. Make sure that it's clear. We're going to tell you, Amanda's going to tell you what this place looks like, and we tried to do that last time. The roadways were a mess. We have contracted additional people to bring in additional skidders, which is a big heavy equipment, to help push trees out of the road. So that we've made some plans from the problems we encountered during Matthew. So I think we're in a better position now than we were before. But the last thing we want is for you to be stranded here and we've got a mess, because Irma is no Matthew. Okay? That was a Category 1. This is not anything to mess around with. So please, we'll keep you updated. We still don't know. It's still a guessing game at this point. We'll push out whatever information we can. Amanda gave you some really good sites, the Nixle, the town's website, to send you the most updated information, and to watch the TV, because that's where the officials are getting it as well. Okay? I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Did you have comments? Or want me to close it?
No, 5-minute break.
Okay. Thank you so much, Toby, for that update. We certainly appreciate it. Just one reminder following Toby's comments. If we are given the order to evacuate and the reentry happens, please remember what happened with Hurricane Matthew. When we came back, there was limited utility services, water, power, sewer, et cetera. Please be prepared to plan ahead to be prepared if that happens. So again, we will take a short 5-minute meeting break, and then we will return for question and answers. Thank you.
Questions and answers, folks? Could we grab a seat, get your coffee? Any questions? Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Others?
Comment first. All the personnel who manage the gate set an examination about the gate policy before they actually manage the gate?
Say that again?
So the personnel that operate the gates,
Yes.
are they set an examination on the gate policy before they're appointed to manage the gate?
They're trained. Toby, can you comment? There's no examination. Is there an examination for gate personnel regarding the contents of the gate entry policy? Do they take an examination? There is no examination, no. There is a training program that goes on for our gate personnel, however. I'll repeat it. I'll repeat questions. We don't have the microphones aren't working.
I know this isn't the forum to discuss the proposed amendments, but there's one particular aspect about the draft that caught my eye. Throughout the draft, any reference to plantation is being removed. Is it a particular reason for that?
It's just the practice that we've had over the past several years, beyond me, is when we do have something that we're marking and putting out there, that we generally will remove the term plantation. It's not coming out of covenants, haven't amended covenants and those types of things, but generally we remove the word plantation under Sea Pines Plantation. And most of that has come from concern from residents about the ethnic tone that it might have for them. Other questions?
I have a question about the new gate policy. About a year ago, I read the first gate policy and the 2015 gate policy and noted some differences. And now, just 2 years later, we have another gate policy. Could someone from ASBO or, homeowner representative basically give us just a brief synopsis of how those three gate policies are different? So we all don't go read three different gate policies.
Well, we have two gate policies. We have the existing gate policy, and we have a draft revised. Most of the revisions, and this is the question again, I think, is why can't we have three different gate policies? And I'm not sure what the third one would be.
No, that's not my question. Sorry,
A summary of, well, let me,
the CSA website used to have the original gate policy that was written by.
okay, yes.
Then in 2015, there was a new draft. And I checked those two, noted a few differences at that time, wrote to a few people about it, all got on the way. But now 2 years later, we have another draft. So I wonder, what's changed? We can't seem to change the gate, but we do have another new gate policy. So can someone say what has changed in the new gate policy that you're asking us to read?
That the new gate policy, you're asking for what has changed in the new gate policy versus the original policy, or? Yes, that one is there. It is a red line draft of what is added in that document.
So the most recent signed version of the gate entry policy is dated November 24th, 2015. That's the copy that you're referring to from the 2015 concept, I believe, that you're referring to. The version that I've just posted on our website that we're asking for feedback is a red line document that actually shows all of the changes that are being proposed by the Gate Entry Committee. Those are showing the changes between the 2015 document and the 2017 current proposed document. That copy is from 1970.
Yeah, there is very little remaining from the original.
I'd be happy to repost.
There are a few things. It's actually posted. It's an attachment to the 1988 covenants. It's an exhibit that's attached. It is already posted as the original gate entry policy.
But that was in effect until 2014.
Okay, we'll check that and see what it is, okay? And we'll be happy to post that attachment next to this. The red line effort to go through that, I'm not sure whether we can even undertake that and how we would do that, but because in one of the reasons is there have been several successive changes that have happened over the years that have dramatically changed that document. There are probably some areas that are similar, and some of the original principles are certainly still there, but a lot of that document has been changed over various policy changes, and I don't have all those, quite frankly. So I couldn't tell you how that was done or what that proposed change was and how we got this, but you can certainly see what we're operating with today and what the proposed amendments are in the red line document.
Other questions? Yes, sir.
We will have a 2018 budget posted online, and as I mentioned earlier, we're going through the budget process now for 2018. So we will be putting out information on that budget as we go forward. My intention is at the November community coffee, we will review that proposed budget. The board actually doesn't vote on that budget till the end of November, but for community feedback, we would like to get some of that information on what is being recommended by finance, by MEMP, the Maintenance and Enhancements Committee, Safety, Security, all those committees going forward so that we can present that back to the community. So that's our intention, but we don't have that yet. That's the intention. But we're in the committee process now. So if you wanted to look at where we are now, you can look at last year's budget, and you'll see the start point that we usually use as a baseline. And we look at the business plan primarily, not just the budget, but the business plan and the services that are being provided, the quantities of those services, the time it takes to do those, and we build a plan off of that. So we start with the assumption that we're operating under today, and then we make changes to that. So that will be going through the committee process right now and will be presented to the board sometime at the end of that process for their consideration. They won't vote on that budget until they get that back in November 23rd? November 21st. So our intention is to bring that out prior to that so you can make comment from a public perspective. And you can always comment to any of the individual committee members or committee chairs. Their emails are posted. It is online, yes. But if you will give your name to Amanda, we'll send you a link to it so you can see it. Okay? Other questions? Becky.
All the down trees along Cordova Parkway, I know that a lot of that property maybe is owned by a resort. How much of the roadway is town right of way? Is it on the street side of the bike path or whatever? Because I just think there are a lot of dangerous trees on Cordova. And have we talked with the town, what a resort about having some of them out there?
So the question, if you didn't hear from Becky, was related to Cordillo Parkway and kind of what you can see as you drive down Cordillo Parkway. There are a series of privately owned lots. They're very long, skinny rectangles. So all of that frontage, as you're seeing down Cordillo Parkway, is actually not part of the Forest Preserve. I will have a follow-up question with Scott with the town. They did approximately a month ago send in their contractor, Crowder Gulf, and did some work along to restore the drainage ditches that run along Cordillo Parkway. Unfortunately, you can't really see from Cordillo Parkway the work that they did. So we're working on our side of the line. The town has worked on the ditches, but to my knowledge, there isn't any work that's currently being contemplated as to what you would see from Cordillo. But I'll ask Scott if there's any plans or if there's any thoughts on how that may proceed, but it's not part of the Forest Preserve.
I just think it's so dangerous, and I've actually talked to the town before about it, and it would maybe be helpful if CSA could also reach out to them, because I think it's so many of us as property owners use Cordova that at some point, I've seen, there've been a couple of trees that have fallen.
Maybe
in the
Dave Risk.
past.
Maybe Dave Risk.
And,
Yeah.
and that maybe if we could just sort of make them aware that there's some dangerous trees.
And we will actually work through our covenant enforcement person, Dave Risk, to see, as he has done kind of within the interior of the community when we've had similar situations, to see if we can identify and contact some of these property owners. Yes, ma'am?
Yes, this is for Toby. Toby, last month you said that you would give us an update and indication on the post and change on South Sea Pines Drive. I guess, I know that you're looking at possibly connecting and paving. My personal opinion is we need less paving right now for water runoff and more paving. I guess specifically, my concern is that you have blocked access to two beach paths, one very popular by my neighbors and myself at 26. And while I get that there's some concern about the safety of that intersection, there are lots of dangerous intersections, and 26 and 25 are the only beach paths that I'm aware of that have been blocked physically from access from South Sea Pines.
Russell, in the previous slides, put up about what the current engineering plan. We have the designs back from Ray Pittman, our engineer, that has come up with some design concepts of what can be done down there. That's going back.
A little island.
Yep.
But
That's,
I'm talking more specifically, I cannot cross where I cross South Sea Pines and be able to access the beach path that I bought in my house, knowing that the closest access point for me used to be. And I know you're trying to make it safer, but I have lately seen more instances where people are just walking out in the street.
yes, and yes.
Take the change down there.
Well, in this proposal, I'm not going to tell you that in the new plan that you may not have to walk 50 more yards down the road to cross at a designated area, which would be safer, was what the plan is that we're trying to create a crosswalk that we force everyone to. I'm not going to tell you at the end of Greenwood Drive, and this is a board decision, I'm not going to say at the end of Greenwood Drive, you're going to be able to walk across to the path that we currently have, because one of the issues. Well, you're saying block. Technically, they're not blocked. We want you to go down to Ibis, and you can walk in behind the post and chain and go to either or. Well, here's the good thing. We have a design. There's board members in the room. The decision is going to be made of what concept that they want to come up with and fund to make that a safe way. That's the only thing we're trying to do is create a safe spot to get people across the roadway. Are people going to walk in the roadway? Absolutely. There's nothing. I'm not aware of any accidents at that intersection. One of the issues is the property owner on the corner where they have created a path through his yard. We want to get away from that and put people to the path. You're probably going to have to, at the end of the day, you're going to have to walk a little further than you did before. That is the current design that we have. What we currently have planned is not going to get you any closer than what has been drawn up right now. The board has the ability to pull the post and chain down if that's what they choose to do. We have a design engineer. That's what we put together. I don't know where it's going to go. It's not my plan. It's just we have got with an engineer and said this is the safest way to get people across the rock. Whether they use the crosswalk or not, that's the way it is. No, we're not. We're putting signage up that's going to direct you to a crosswalk. That's the current plan. Whether they use the crosswalk or not, there's not anything I can do about that.
Toby, I live down there, and my kids work up at the beach club. I make that pass maybe 10 times a day. You are not moving anybody a football field down the road. They're all going the fastest way they've ever gone to the beach, and that's over the chain, right across the road. It's 99 degrees, it's hot and humid, they've got kids and bikes. They're not walking 100 yards down the road.
So we should take everything down because someone's not going to do. We're giving them a path to cross the walkway.
I'm not saying you should take it down, but in the covenants also guarantee everyone in this room, all homeowners, the right to use the beach paths. That is true. That is true. If you could just cut, just like Beach Path 24, a place that's this big to walk through, so we can get bikers and the elderly and moms with babies through that to that path as quickly as possible. And it's silly to think that we're going to get all those people to walk 100 yards down the road in August.
Yeah, we generally we agree they're not going to do that. We're trying to provide a plan that is safe access to the beach. We're not trying to deny anybody access to the beach. We're trying to route them away from what was considered by the residents, the neighbors of that area, to be an unsafe area. And that's the plan, and that plan will go back through. They're reviewing it. We'll continue to review it. It'll come back to our Safety and Security Committee, and they'll make a recommendation in conjunction with recommendations from the engineers, the traffic engineers. That's up to the board and to the committee. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that the residents meant, or understated, that you would then block the end of those two deep paths of walk. You have a sign that entices you and a path that allows you to walk that way, and then you put a chain in front of it. If somebody trips over the chain trying to get on the sign by each path, I wonder if that becomes a different kind of problem for us. But I'm all support of the change, but just not blocking the two designated beach.
Understood, and I've heard that before, and that's already being passed forward to the Safety and Security Committee. Yes, ma'am. Okay, thank you. Other questions, comments? Yes, sir.
Comment about the same subject. First of all, last year, I believe you wanted to put a trolley stop there and bring all kinds of people over there, and now you're concerned about somebody crossing the street. The other thing is, there are 6x6 posts with a big chain link fence going, or chain going across there. I think that William Fraser would probably roll over in his grave and said we're trying to, it looks like we're on a highway as opposed to being inside sea pines where we always try to do things that is aesthetically pleasing. I think that chain is, it looks like there's some kind of a major problem going on, and apparently it is because somebody crossed the street in the wrong area. I think the whole thing should come down, and that would be the end of it.
Okay. Okay. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Just a dissenting vote. I think you've done a lot to enhance safety because people are not stopping in the street. Admittedly, they're doing other creative things dangerous. But I fail to see the inconvenience if you're coming down Wagon, just exactly like Martha said. You walk across the street, you walk behind the chains, and there's no impediment to the beach walk access at all. To me, the number of steps is unchanged, and I do this every day, multiple times. It's no different than it used to be if you cross the street. If you want to fill in the lagoon and have a direct access, then it doesn't.
Okay, instead of us getting into a conversation about change in posts, let's see if there's any other questions for everybody. And I'll stay around after and we can talk all we want about change in posts. But are there other questions about anything that we presented today or other matters? Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned that it was a quiet summer and that you didn't have the break-ins of cars and so forth. Is that because the people that were doing those things have been caught and prosecuted, or is it just they stopped doing it?
Well, I'd like to, there were some arrests made at the end of last summer. However, we do have some communities right now that are experiencing both burglaries and car break-ins. I think we've been very fortunate. We haven't had what we've had in the past. We did make some arrests. One gentleman was responsible for 10 car break-ins here in Sea Pines. So we have made some arrests. I just think it's a lull before the storm. I mean, we're not going to be completely out of it. There's always going to be some type of theft that occurs. It's a large community, but some other communities are still going through the same battle of dealing with car break-ins.
Before you go away, how do we stack up on daily passes sold in August? Do you have those numbers yet?
I'd have to.
No, I don't, I'm sorry.
No, we.
The office for a couple days, but I can pull it together and I'll put it on there.
And just a note on that, this summer, we did see a decline in July, a slight decline in July. But our weather patterns this summer have been significantly different than what we've seen in the past. And we're trying to do some sort of an analysis of that to see if we can determine how much was weather related or how much is just pure demand. But that we may or may not be able to compile that to have any significant meaning, but we're trying to understand it better. But we think, intuitively that on days when it's raining, we have less people come in. Yes, sir.
Toby, you mentioned that there were an increase in bicycle accidents, or there were a lot of bicycle accidents. Were they auto, bicycle, and if so, were they central to a particular location? And if so, did you have to change or what about changing signage to those locations?
Not at any particular location that I found. The majority of the ones we responded to were a person had just fallen on the bike, and it was really unknown what the cause was. We did have, I knew just 3 right off the top of my head that also involved a car vehicle. And I'm not pointing the finger at the bicycles, but they were at fault in the accident. Didn't yield to the stop sign.
Has any thought been given to increasing the size of the stop signs at the major roads, given the fact that the signs are roughly the same size, and as a result, we've all become immune to the size of them, whereas at the major roads, Lighthouse, Plantation,
we have a plan to change and add signage to the leisure pass. We are also looking at some pavement markings versus a sign putting pavement marking down. If you see around the town of Hilton Head, they have done some pavement markings versus putting an actual sign up. We are changing the looks of the sign, so if you go around Fraser Circle, you see we were going to a new concept. That is also what we're going to use around the leisure path. We do have some additional signage. We lost some signs during the storm, I think. Was roughly 3,000 signs are being replaced. So we are making an effort. We do have some areas that we need to add some additional signage and some directional signage, not just safety signs, but some directional signage as well. Yes, ma'am.
This made me think of a little problem that we have as residents. When there's a person who doesn't know the way around and they stop for the pedestrian, and then, I'm afraid that, the car could get pushed into the pedestrian. It's like dangerous for the pedestrian. So is there any way that the people that aren't familiar, that are visiting the community, are informed that this is one of our sort of rules, that you're not supposed to stop for the pedestrian with lights in the...
We are adding that to our daily pass. However, they're driving through the gate throwing it on the dashboard. Most people that come from another state, they see someone at the crosswalk looking across, they stop and let them across. That's a tough one. We have property owners, and I'm not going to tell you if there's not a car behind me, I'll stop and let people across the road. But I understand what you're saying. But to get that word out, we do have on our signage, it says vehicles have right of way. But every Saturday we have a brand new group of people. That's a tough one. That's just a tough one to deal with. It does say it on the signage.
Just as a follow-up, have you had any accidents that way, or people hitting the car in front of them, stop?
None that I'm aware of. Yeah, none that I'm aware of.
Let me make sure everybody understands. If someone's in the crosswalk, you need to yield to them. Okay? Just make sure everybody understands that. Okay.
Other questions? Karen?
Relative to this gentleman's comment and how hard it is to get, you can't force people to walk or travel further to get to the crosswalk. At least a half a dozen times recently, I have seen bikes coming from Beach Club, let's say, along White House and going right across the circle to continue on White House. Totally not willing to go that very short distance with their bike to cross in the proper place. And about 10 days ago, I actually saw a man and woman walking around Fraser Circle as if it were a leisure path. They were on the inside of the merge, they were in the road, they were on the curb, and they were just walking along. But my other little question was, I didn't see any upcoming events, so I'm going to assume this is probably a Rob Bender question, but the Sea Pines Beach cleanup at Beach Club on the 16th is still
Okay.
in place. And I was wondering, we're bringing a bunch of turtle trappers. Are we supposed to bring our own gloves and bags?
That is a resort-related event, so I would recommend that you reach out to Rob Bender. We don't, this is just CSA and ASPO events that are posted here, but I will reach out to Rob and get the information for our community email update, because that is certainly something that the community can participate in if they'd like to do so. That supports the beach cleanup efforts of the entire beach of Sea Pines.
As a point of clarification.
Yes.
How many days was the evacuation in Matthew in effect? Now, how long were we cut off? We weren't here. We got out of town in September last year.
So Wednesday.
How many days were you shut out?
It was
5 days.
5 days.
They announced on Tuesday before Saturday.
Have at least 5 days worth of food and...
They'll call it when they get prepared to call it, but yeah, they try to pick it out so everybody has ample
But there were
time.
still power and boil water issues.
Yeah.
When we returned, right?
No, we're talking about the evacuation in advance, was 5 days in advance of when the storm hit.
Oh, 5 days.
Coming back,
Was a
it was
week?
the following Tuesday.
Right.
So how many days?
Oh,
4 days.
4 days total? Time out? Time back?
5 days from the evacuation start,
Okay.
So
and then an
9.
additional 4 days on the other
So
side
9
of it, 9 days.
10 days.
And that was for a Category 1.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Right.
And our son's name is Matthew, and his father-in-law's is Hart.
Right. Other questions? Yes, Diedrich.
Amanda, I have a very important question.
Yes, sir.
Is it going to be a boy or a girl?
Oh, it's a boy. The end of November. Thank you, Diedrich. My second. I have a little girl. She's 2.5. So thank you, Linda. Correct.
I don't know if they'll have any information that is particularly new, but I'm kind of obsessing about this right now.
As you should. Yes, thank you so much. Yes, sir.
I submitted this question about 3 weeks ago at the information station at Seapine's Living, but never received a response.
Okay.
Seapine Center, did they officially respond to our request for a temporary gate fee increase, or they just kind of let
I'll let you
it
take that
die?
one.
I can get it over there.
It was subject to approval by both the resort and by Sea Pine Center, and neither have signed the document approving.
But I can expand on that. I've had multiple meetings on Mark Griffin, Chairman of CSA, but multiple meetings with the resort. And I expect they will be supportive or are supportive. The discussions are not for a 90-day summer increase. It's for an increase that will go on throughout the entire year. That 90-day thing would become quite confusing. Yes, it was. But now the discussion is for a permanent increase. Did not sign off. Ongoing conversations. There's now a proposal on the table, and Michael Tucker and I are meeting with the owners on the 26th of this month.
Please tell me that it's not
Might want to keep that.
besides an easy $10 bill.
I can't tell you that. I don't know the answer to that. I
Thank you. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
The triangle that you were referring to before, where you showed like a little simulation of possible flowers or possible manipulation to that intersection right south Seapine, south, right?
Sure, yes.
And Greenwood. What, has something precipitated that? What would cause that to possibly be under consideration for change? I seem to feel like there's a good visibility when you're coming out of Greenwood to look left and right. And it seems wide and clear to me, so I'm not sure why we would consider changing that triangular section.
Sure. To answer the question, as Toby mentioned and earlier, we're continuing to look at safety at the intersection. There's been numerous recommendations out of our Safety and Security Committee. We're currently working with engineers to evaluate the turning radiuses at that intersection. And one of the current issues is vehicles that are traveling towards Ocean Gate from South Beach. There's a dramatic turn that those vehicles are making across that intersection, going left onto Greenwood Drive. So by changing the geometry of the intersection would be a significant safety improvement. To answer that question, no. However, I think that we're trying to take we're taking a precaution, a proactive step here to improve the intersection by installing a landscape island. Kind of forces those vehicles to make that left turn much differently. Again, it's a proactive measure to change the geometry of the intersection, working with our engineers. So that's what we're working towards. We still have to work through the committees on the approval of everything that we're looking at. So, sure.
Let me address what prompted this, which was one of the questions. We had a property owner last year.
For those of you who don't know, this is Michael Tucker.
I'm
He's
sorry.
Safety and Security.
Thank you, Brett. When you come from the Ocean Gate towards South Beach and you make a right turn onto Greenwood Drive, there was vegetation on that corner that we cleared out. The problem is that as soon as you get through that intersection, within 100 yards, there is a stamped crosswalk through there. And I went down there with Bo and with Toby last year, and we watched traffic flow. And when cars come into that intersection, if they don't see anything coming from South Beach making a left turn in front of them, they just make that right turn very quickly. And we have seen multiple occasions, having spent there probably 3 or 4 hours at that intersection last year, and at least 3 to 4 hours this year. I believe it was the May board meeting, I even asked that we move forward with some stop signs there, because I watched that morning a mother and a 9-year-old, 10-year-old, and a 6 or 7-year-old literally have to jump out of the way of a car speeding through there. That's what prompted all of this looking at down there. When we got into it and realized how fortunate we have been that we have not had an accident there, we started looking at ways that we could improve that. That then led into the fact that we had people coming off of Beach 26 and walking down into the middle of that intersection and then connecting to the leisure trail on Greenwood going forward. So it kind of morphed into a larger safety issue, but it was prompted by the fact that people were making quick turns onto that. I've since been there on Sunday of this past Sunday. I was at a property owner's home for over an hour, and we watched traffic at that intersection and saw it duplicated again. So what we're trying to do is look at all of the facets of that intersection, but what prompted it was a property owner complaining. When we had that brought before the Safety and Security Committee, we met with various property owners along that corridor and talked about that situation, took recommendations from property owners on how to fix that, went back to the property owners with our recommendations, and we also then looked at possibly making that a 3-way stop in that area. We then took, as Brett has said before the Safety and Security Committee, it was looked at, it went to the town, for the traffic engineers to look at it. All of these conversations about that intersection are on our agenda for the Safety and Security Committee meeting next week on the 13th, and we will take a look at that. Our main issue is the fact that it is an unsafe situation right now, and we're trying to find the best solution.
I don't see how that translates into blocking paths.
It
Green space, I don't sit on Wagon Road, I walk down the leisure trail, I turn right after I get over the pedestrian bridge, and there's green space, I walk right down, perfect line of sight, across the 26.
It has been looked at by engineers, not myself, but people who look at that and feel that that is an unsafe area, and we are still looking at it. We put those up right now in an effort to keep people walking behind the rope and chain instead of walking directly to that intersection that you're talking about. We are looking at it. I guess the best way I can say is we don't have the final answer. We're still evaluating the best way to look at it, and we're taking it through the committee process.
Okay, but again, my input would be, you have singled out 2 paths on the beach. There are lots of dangerous crossing spots that people use all on Sea Pines Drive. Those are the only 2 that you've chosen to close.
Because property owners ask us.
Property owners.
I understand that.
Do you have a few property owners that ask you? I mean, we have property owners that have been asking you guys to do stuff for years. You have one meeting with property owners, and next thing you know, we got posts.
We had 2 meetings with property owners. The reality is it is a work in progress that we're looking at to try to make it the safest. What you have to keep in mind is that when we do have, like we had last year, several property owners and meetings of property owners who explained they were concerned about that. You may not be concerned about it, but I can assure you that there were other people that were, and once we are notified, we have an obligation to try to fix it so that it reduces our liability at that area. It's a work in progress, that's all I can say. Yes, Nick?
Thank you, Michael.
I would like to say something. Alex Cruden, who is in the RPOA, attended both of those meetings. And I do not believe, the posted chains. Jana, we can't hear you. Alex Cruden, who is my co-head of the Deer Run Gunnery POA, attended both of those meetings. He said that there were no posted chains brought up in the meeting. And much like the gate policy, you're bringing the gate policy to us to, give you comments. I would have thought that you would have, for such a huge change, you would have brought that back to the community who lives in Heritage Woods and in that area and asked them for feedback. Certainly, I also agree that it's an eyesore but needed for drop-offs, but also we need to, per the covenants, get access back at Beach Walk 26 and 25. So I would take that back to the committee, and I would ask you if it does violate covenants.
Okay, I'll look at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Any other questions? Yes, Karen.
One more, it's actually a positive relative to this triangle, flower triangle. I love that intersection. After listening to Michael and Russell, if you're coming south on South Sea Pines Drive and you want to make that right turn on Greenwood, if there's a triangle of flowers there, you're going to have to slow down
Right.
and execute that turn. Otherwise, you're going to be in the flowers.
Right, that's the theory behind the proposal. Right, it also essentially will, force those folks that are coming in from the Ocean Gate, turning in to Greenwood to slow down a bit, because it's not just an open area. Right. Right. Thank you for that feedback, Karen.
One stop sign on the south, coming south, we're talking about within City Tower, just that one stop sign on the right, or making the right onto Greenwood and encountering the quick walkway.
Right.
One stop sign would make a tremendous difference there. The other ones have clearer lines of sight, but that one, which will hit the crosswalk too soon, seems like a no-brainer. Study, research, architect.
Right.
One stop sign, I think, would change everything.
To my knowledge, and Michael or Brett may be able to expand on this, but the stop signs are being evaluated in that area, and logistically, they are looking at a plan for that potential installation. So, was that correct? Okay.
Comment back to these
Yes.
nice posts that I was talking about.
Yeah.
You'll notice around Sea Pines, all the signage is on a 6x6 post with a 4x4 breakaway. I think that's the code, the requirement that you can't have a 6x6 so many feet to the highway. I believe all those 6x6 posts with the chain going through, I don't think they have a breakaway on them. So I don't think they're according to the Department of Code, highway code.
Yeah, that's why we have an engineer engaged in the study to make sure that whatever we're doing is built to code. So that's the requirement. They go through the code and get the approval through the town. Okay.
Other questions? All right, well, if there are no more questions, we appreciate your attendance this morning. This information will be posted on the Sea Pines Living website. Have a safe and happy day, and stay safe regarding Hurricane Irma. Thank you.